Hi, I'm Nicole Alvarez, and I'll be talking about living intentionally small. And I'm so happy to follow Georgia and Tina here. They've really set the stage with what makes good design. And if you can imagine with small spaces, it's that much more important because it's kind of like a poem where you have to be really precise with what elements you choose, and it's all about the impact at the end. So I'll talk about, I'll introduce, go over the small community and this idea and why people are starting to get behind this, and then go through my story and my experiences with it, and go through some strategies for living better in small spaces. So starting with the small community. In 1950, the average size of the American home was 980 square feet. By 2012, that had grown to 2,500 square feet. We're starting to see people that are preferring smaller spaces, and that's because of one or all of these priorities. They are prioritizing location, being near bigger cities, or being near the activity of a community. They are prioritizing sustainability, and if you can imagine, just having a smaller space reduces the amount of construction waste and the utility and energy that has to go into that. And also, at a more basic level, a simpler life. With the less clutter, both physical and mental, you really can enjoy life a bit more. So I'll go through a range of different types of small spaces. This is perhaps more of the extreme in small. So this is a tiny home. There's a grand community of people that are really excited about this and advocates for it. And you can see it's built on a trailer, so it can move around. This is probably, I think this one's less than 100 square feet. And people with tiny homes, mostly, they're building them themselves. And so there's this pride behind making that space and living in it. And there's even communities or websites or programs that allow you to purchase plans and be able to have the set there in front of you. You can build from that, but then you can also tweak it along the way to use maybe a recycled window that you found, or bring in some wood from your parents' barn, or different ways that you can get behind it. There was actually a workshop for this here last year, I believe, in this space too. Another type, going off of what Tina was talking about with flexibility in housing, accessory dwellings. So this is a backyard apartment in a house in Cameron Village, Cameron Park area. And there's different types of accessory dwellings. They can be a garage apartment, a basement apartment, an attic apartment. And what's so great about it is that it provides the homeowner with the flexibility of renting the space out, renting the house out, or using both spaces as needed as their family grows or their needs change. Similar to that are laneway houses, but they are houses that are independent and owned by the person, and usually accessible from an alleyway. So they can be old garages or structures in the backyards that have been converted and are now owned by another family, or they have also been built new. There's a lot in Toronto and Vancouver, and that bottom right picture is actually in DC. And so how is that happening at a larger scale? The cities nowadays, Seattle, San Francisco, New York City, Boston, many others, are starting to look at micro apartments and how they can be able to provide housing for the changing demographic of people that are occupying these bigger, denser cities. So there's more single people, couples that want to be able to be in the middle of the city but really can't afford it. So by minimizing the space, they have that possibility to live there. And this is in a design competition in New York, and this is actually going to be built. It should be starting pretty soon. That the city of New York wanted to get different ideas from designers and developers on how to provide denser living. And you can see a couple different floor plans here at the bottom where it has everything that you need. There's furniture that's built into the space so that really you can just come in with a backpack, a surfboard for some reason they have here in New York, and you can live really simply. And then it's also prefabricated so that it can go up and stack and really grow fast, and can be replicable. So why am I so interested in all of this? I'd say there's three main aspects on why I've become so interested in it. And the very first instance or experience with small spaces was really when I was a student in design school, and I took a class from Georgia Vizio. So it's so perfect that I'm speaking here with her today, because she really helped start this for me. This was the first time that I had really considered designing a space for the needs of a person, and seeing how a lifestyle can define space, and how a space can also in return help you live better. So this was a backyard apartment, a hypothetical project for my backyard, where I was living in the duplex, and it was so exciting and invigorating to see how you can be able to craft a small space around a person. And so this was 600 square feet, and you can see some of the concepts also with outside spaces that I'll talk about soon. And then another experience is studying abroad. So this was my apartment in Aix-en-Provence, France. I stayed there for 5 months, and I went with just a suitcase, so all that could fit in a suitcase. I was happier there than having all, I could pick my clothes so much faster than here, and I almost wanted to get rid of everything else that I had at home, because I realized I didn't really need all that. But then I was also so invigorated by the lifestyle of living in the middle of a city. That was the view from my window out on the rooftops, and when I walked out, there was a square just a block away that I could get fresh produce every day, and I was able to take public transit and walk and really see the community, and walk through the same street the whole semester, but still find new corners and new spaces, and that closer, denser living really inspired me. And then the experience that really embarked me on this journey of studying it more is living in my own small space. So this is actually just up the road at St. Mary's in Peace. I lived in a 300 square foot apartment above a dentist office. So it was all one space, all open. You can see the living and the sleeping bed here at the corner, and then the kitchen beyond. Looking back, and you can, the first thing I noticed when I walked in were the big windows, and I knew that it would be perfectly fine to live in a smaller space, have everything all one studio space with those wonderful windows there that opened up, and it was right across from Broughton, so you could hear the bells, and it was a wonderful space. The kitchen was fully functional. I had people over, did entertain, and it was perfect for just one person. I was living on my own, and it fit me just well. And there were built-ins already there that helped me move into the space and make it feel appropriate. So this built-in included a hook area right when I walked in. I could drop off my keys. There was a multi-sided bookshelf, and then it turned into a pantry, and that's one of the best pantries I've ever had. I don't know if I've had a better pantry since, honestly. And then even just outside of the bathroom, there is my closet, open shelves where I had all my shoes, and even linen closet. You can see added storage above. And the bathroom even had a window, so I rarely had to turn the lights on. And so I started to study it more and try to define what was working well, and what was really helping me live in this, and why I loved it so much. And started to put some stuff out there, and somebody contacted me to do a documentary film. So I actually have a clip of it that I'd like to play really quick. You'll be able to see my apartment. Let's see. And for one person in this stage of my life, everything is just within reach. There's purpose and intent behind everything that's secure. In the US, in 1950, the average house size was $1 immensely, and I think that our sense of normal is much larger than most people, most other countries, for sure. I know a lot of people really do want to get that house that has double height living space, it's so grand, or has all those extra sitting rooms. I'm glad you enjoyed that. So it really helped me, so it really helped me see what was working well, because I was setting up the camera. Matt, who's sitting here with me, didn't know that the camera was rolling, so he kind of stared at the camera as he came in. But the film's quite a bit longer. You can look it up on YouTube if you want to see the rest of it. But I got to study the space by really trying to see how I interact with it. And at the end of the 2 years that I lived there, I realized that what I loved so much about it is the lifestyle that I had created. And I was entertaining people. I would cook more often. I would walk, and it was close to Glenwood. I could walk to restaurants and bars, and we would walk to downtown. And it was just that lifestyle. So I started a blog called Intentionally Small, and through this blog, I used my apartment kind of like a guinea pig. I was documenting it and trying little strategies to see what could help live in a small space more efficiently. But then I also wanted to see other spaces, see how other people live. And I started to visit friends' apartments, go to Airbnb, go to family. And I have quite a collection of different spaces and different stories. And so what I do is I go to each of these places with my camera. I take a lot of pictures. I post kind of a walking tour with pictures and show some of the key elements that really stood out to me. And then I draw a plan, and I show the plan on my blog, and people can then be able to follow through and really try to help them understand the space as well. And that, by documenting it, by drawing it and photographing it, it helps instill in me what it is that I liked about this space. And I can go back and compare all these plans right next to each other and see how different they are. But then I also really like to see the different types of people that live in these. So from couples to singles to people that decide to buy a house or construct a house and consider their growing family in the future, to even my grandma who's living in a mother-in-law apartment in Tampa. So kind of talking again about the flexibility, multi-generational living like Tina mentioned. And also, small is relative, and that's kind of a larger conversation, but 300 square feet here in Raleigh, it's pretty unheard of. It's kind of hard to find smaller than that. I know of a few that are around, but 300 square feet in the middle of Manhattan is a luxury. So it's very relative, and I try to focus on about 1,500 square feet or less, but really it depends on the size of the family. It all changes. Context is a big issue there. So through my experiences of living in a small space and then also seeing all these different spaces, I've collected a few strategies that I think can really help make the most of it. And I'll start at more of the bones of what makes a good space, and Tina and Georgia have also spoken to many of these points, and then kind of going into the more complex and more smart design tools. So location is really number one. If you want to be near a downtown, if you want to be able to walk to fresh produce or grocery store or go to a park and that be where your dining room is. And then also how you want to get around. If you want to be near public transit, for that as an option. If you want to walk, if you want to bike. My fiance and I the only reason why I left my small studio apartment is to live with my fiance, which was a hard decision, but it was worth it. It was worth it. I don't regret it. And so we really chose. We live right downtown Raleigh. I work in Durham, and I take the bus every day. Matt has a small business, City Fabric and Walk Your City, and he takes his he bikes to historic Boylan Heights, and that's where his co-working space is. And then we walk most of the time here in Raleigh, and use the car pretty occasionally for errands if needed. But that was our trade-off. We would rather have a smaller space right in the middle and pay more of a premium so that we could be in the middle of it all and have the lifestyle that we were choosing to have. And that might not be the same for everybody, but that was really important for us. Daylighting. Georgia spoke very well about daylighting, and this is an example of a studio apartment here in Raleigh. And so this is the main space. There's the bed there that looks more, it kind of disguises the couch, and a workspace. They eat out here too, so that's the main space. There's just a small kitchen and a small bathroom that's not shown. But you can see lights coming in from multiple sides, and that really can make a space for small space a lot more habitable. Having tall ceilings. This is really tall. This is an Airbnb that we stayed in, and that was kind of scary staying up there. But seeing that you can capitalize on the height of a space to either inhabit it and be able to have a bed there, or extend it and have an office space up there, but also just a slight nudge of maybe 9 feet instead of 8 feet can really make a difference. Exterior spaces. This is an entry patio to a basement apartment in Chapel Hill, and they said that they live here most of the time. They're outside so much because the climate really allows them to, and they can light up with candles and can enjoy it year-round. And not everyone can have the luxury of having the city of New York as your living room, but this is an apartment in Chelsea that I visited. And I think anybody would go for a shoebox in Chelsea if you have this kind of a terrace there. And then going to the inside, thinking about open spaces. So there's different ways that you can go about it. This is a good example of really keeping everything minimal and opening the spaces so the dining and the living are one. And you can see the floor is continuous. The subtle light of colored paint can really tie it all together, but then also being very intentional with the elements that you choose to decorate or inhabit your space. So I contacted, this was a friend of mine from architecture school. This is a townhouse here in Raleigh. And I contacted her months before I actually went there because she was still in the process of making sure that they picked the furniture that was right for the space and they were emotionally invested in. And every piece of art here had a story for them. And then the other would be livening it up. This is my friend's apartment in Brooklyn, New York. And so she literally brought in tons of plants. There are plants just off the picture to the left here. And she just let her life be the decoration, the magnets and color splashes here and there, and things like this just are so exciting to me. Then you can start to define spaces as well. This is another house in the mountains of North Carolina, and you can see how the bed was pushed into this little nook, and then the walls around it were painted. So color is starting to define this cozy sleeping space. And then the subtle gesture of putting an open, small bookshelf, a really simple way of defining seating area and sleeping. Another way of using furniture, this is in Raleigh as well. There wasn't much storage or counter space in the kitchen, so you can see the pieces of furniture, the green and the red, are actually refurbished. Hillary did a good job of picking pieces that could help and her space, but also felt really integrated to it, and also were decoration ways, or ways of enlivening it. So there's splashes of green and red that start to appear, but then her fridge takes center stage, and that's where all of the action is happening, and everything else stays pretty simple. An example of flexible furniture, this couple only takes out their table to sit when they have a nice meal or having a time to catch up, but then most of the other time they're just relaxing on the couch and watching shows there and eating there. And Tina touched on this as well. This is resource furniture, and they provide so many options for small space living. This is the table up here that expands to sit 10, or a wall unit that includes a couch, shelves, and then a fold-down bed. And then more permanent ways of inhabiting the space by doing built-ins. Most old spaces might have them already, and they really add character. But then if you decide in advance and try to help design the space around what you'd like to be living like, they can help solve other issues of storage and defining space. And then probably the most high-tech of them, this is, if you want to look it up, there's a video on YouTube. It's the Lego style apartment. It's in Barcelona. And there's this complex wall system that can close down completely and then open up just what you need. So it includes a kitchen with you can see the dishwasher open there, a wardrobe, and it has everything in there. And then at the window unit, you can pull out the bed. So the bed actually rolls out and it goes underneath the balcony when it's closed. So outside there's a living space there. And then there's even a table that comes out, and they use the window seat as a bench and then add the 2 chairs on the other side. So being able to customize a space perfectly around a person and how you'd like to live. And it was only 250 square feet. And so I leave you with the picture that started it all for me, that got me so passionate about small spaces and got me interested in searching for a life that's a little more intentional, and starting with the home and places that I call home. Thank you.